Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm from the ADHD Advocate. And today I've also got Megan with me from the US, one of our
Hello.
English coaches. And today, this week, actually, we're talking about academic success. So we're talking about ADHD in the context of education. And specifically, we are now going to be talking about the law. So what legal entitlements ADHDers have in education, both in the UK and the US today. So Megan, did you want to maybe just give a bit of a background as to kind of what you've been able to do in this space in the US?
Sure. So in the US, it's slightly different from the UK, but our laws are quite similar as well. So in the US, where what we have to offer students with disabilities, we have a 504 plan, which is offered under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So it really falls under civil rights. And that is designed to provide accommodations for a student with disabilities, be it learning disabilities, ADHD, or physical disabilities of some kind, to access their regular education in the typical environment. So basically that is for accommodations so that a student can access the curriculum. It might include preferential seating, modified assignments, certain things that would allow them to access whatever is happening in the regular classroom. We also have an IEP, which is something that is it's under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. And that is where a student would be evaluated and get specialized instruction. It usually falls within they try to keep it within the school environment, but it would also include other placements if that is deemed necessary for the child.
Yeah, so, and I guess not to confuse people in the UK, the IEP that Megan's referring to is actually our EHCP, to just add that to the mix here. Already with all these, acronyms, it can get really confusing, like even in education generally, away from SEN law, special educational needs and disabilities law, there's acronyms are just prolific in education. I remember as a governor, I didn't know what anyone was talking about in that first couple of meetings, actually. But definitely the case with this particular area. So an EHCP, that's an education, health and care plan. That's what they call them over here in the UK. And that sounds exactly like your IEP in terms of, probably needing to prove, that the child's got, well, here it's special educational needs for which special educational provision, is necessary. So that's right. There's a bit of a fight on your hands when you're going for an education healthcare plan. Is that the same in the US for the IEP?
Yes. So a 504, which is the accommodations, for the regular environment, that's a little bit easier, but you do have to have a medical diagnosis to obtain a 504. So you have to go and do that first through your doctor, pediatrician, whatever provider you're seeing. It could also be a psychologist because there's 504s for anxiety, things like that, OCD. Those are things that would be also covered under a 504, but you have to have a diagnosis. For an IEP, you don't necessarily have to have a diagnosis, but there must be an evaluation done. The school must evaluate. And this is where parents don't often understand the laws. But if you are feeling like your student could benefit from specialized instruction, they need to be taught in a different way, you would then ask for an evaluation. And the school can provide an evaluation and determine if there are educational needs that warrant that specialized instruction. However, that doesn't often, sometimes the school tries to prolong that process. We have something in the States called SRBI, Scientific Research-Based Intervention, and the school will often tell you that you need to go through a certain amount of time in SRBI before they could be evaluated for that specialized instruction through an IEP and be deemed appropriate for special education. That is not the case. Anytime a parent feels that an evaluation would be warranted, it is their right to ask for that evaluation.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, that is definitely a common problem here in the UK as well. One, that parents don't understand what the entitlements are. They've got, a lot of them don't even really know sometimes that that the child actually needs any particular help, for one, because it's hard. I mean, it's a hard gig for teachers, and this is not, we're not trying to have a go at education, at teachers. We understand the challenges that of schools and how under-resourced they are firsthand. We know how difficult it is for teachers to be able to meet all these needs. I don't know what it's like in the US, Megan, but we've got like 30 kids in a class in the States. What about you?
It's the same over here. And I know so many teachers that, they don't feel that they can be the ones to ask for these evaluations, although they are members of the team and they absolutely can. But many of them feel they have to lead the parent, like almost like a horse to water. They have to like be telling the parent certain things, just short of saying, hey, I believe your child needs an evaluation. So that's, and I've heard that from many, many teachers here. But it is very difficult. And, I feel like, more and more each year, I'm hearing stories from my teacher colleagues and friends that, the need for different instruction and different things is increasing.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because every child, they've got different needs, but particularly ADHD there's something over here called is it dual multiple exceptionality or something, DME, where they're recognizing that sometimes the neurodiversity can confer real gifts, and quite often gifts, with the child, that they are very intelligent, very capable, but they're not kind of performing as expected, I guess because of the way that education is delivered, but it's not exactly disability. So it's, how do you meet the needs of those children as well? Because it's all a bit of a game, isn't it, in terms of, what limb, how can I fit, they've got a need, where does it fit here? With us, it's Children and Families Act or Disability and the Equality Act. And do you see any of that as well?
Yes. So here, I think we call it twice exceptional. And I think that often that does for us fall under the 504. Typically those kids are able to kind of get by with certain modifications to their environment, where the IEP is really reserved for a documented learning disability that is found through an educational evaluation.
Yeah, very, very similar as well. Although with the SEND reforms over here, I think 2014, the SEND reforms, they talk about kind of first quality teaching, like the first quality teaching should be able to meet most needs. I think it's a bit of a dream, given again the resources and some ADHD is, not all ADHDs are created equal, and certainly their traits very much, it can be very different. You've got obviously some, and I know in my daughter's class, boys that are very boisterous and loud and disruptive. Schools tend to want to meet their needs more quickly. And, but it's the girls and the well-behaved ones that are too petrified to say something wrong or express their feeling, their distress, and all zone out, that they don't really get a look in.
Right. That's the truth over here too, I would say. And, it really takes a lot of advocacy on the part of the parent, to kind of put that child in the forefront. And it becomes really difficult too, if that child is close to the line. If they're struggling, they could benefit from that instruction, but they aren't really failing. And that's where, you really need to lean on knowing those laws. I've had to do that for my own daughter.
Yeah, me too.
And she's right there. She's right on that line. And, it took a lot, of realizing what the laws are, realizing that, no, I don't have to wait for the SRBI process to be complete. I'm recognizing this, as a need now. I want to rule out, we have dyslexia in our family. And that was something that I wanted to be sure was not affecting her. It is affecting her. It turns out. But, back then that was something that, I was really pushing for the evaluation, because I knew that something else was going on. And, according to how she was performing in school, it was right on that line.
Yeah, it's interesting how us advocates that we're here as a result of our, personal experiences, having actually experienced for ourselves as parents, to see the child struggle and then to feel quite powerless. Like with my daughter, my eldest, when I spoke to the school and talked about an education, health and care plan, I was told that her needs weren't severe enough. I wouldn't get one. Get one.
Yeah, that same thing. It took years, actually.
Yeah. Years of what? How were those years for you, Megan?
So I ended up, getting private help because I knew it was necessary. And then in the meantime, just kind of chipping away. And then eventually it got, the gap had widened, really, which I was trying to avoid, but, and once that gap widened enough and they were like, oh yeah, she's reading 2 years below grade level. That's when they finally were able to, push her over and put her on an IEP.
It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah, because you do have to build that evidence. And I just remember, when you're writing kind of the case, and and you're not obviously hoping for it to be like not good, but that it needs to be in order to get them the help that they need. And it's awful, isn't it? It's very distressing.
It is distressing. It really is.
Yeah, but I mean, the main thing is though, where do you think your daughter would be if she didn't get that help? If you hadn't have secured that support for her, where do you think she'd be now?
We would be probably at the same place, probably 2 years behind. And she's doing well now. I still think there's still some issues. There's still some things that I think she needs. They're trying to say she doesn't anymore. But we're definitely in a better place for her having the specialized instruction that she did receive through the school, 5 days a week.
So is she,
I was only able to provide it for her privately 2 days a week.
Oh, okay. So is she in we call it mainstream, mainstream school or a specialist school?
She's in a mainstream school. And so what ended up happening is, in our town, a bunch of parents got together and we formed a special education support group, parent support group. You can do that formally in the States. It's called a SEPTA, or a special education PTA. We chose not to do it formally because we didn't want to have that is also tied to this district administration, and we didn't want that. We wanted to kind of be our own rogue group. But we ended up pushing the Board of Education in our town, and we ended up making a lot of changes, and they brought in specialized, so in my daughter's case, it was for the dyslexia. They brought in people who were trained in Orton Gillingham and certified in Orton Gillingham, and it doesn't exist in other districts around us.
So it's crazy, isn't it though? Like it's hard because it is so inconsistent, isn't it? For you, I guess it's between different state, like you'd have inconsistencies between the different states and district. I don't know exactly how we get to the micro level, but with the UK in England, obviously we've got like different local authorities, and I think similarly maybe to your states, well, they certainly do apply different laws, certainly not the law that actually applies, even though it's the one law that should govern all local authorities, but they've got their own policies. So they kind of, in a way, maybe you think that they're like states and have they can apply their own kind of
Right.
law, which they can't.
Yes.
Is that quite similar thing in terms of your states have got different, but actually
it is. And it's difficult because in different states, the same law is called a different thing.
Oh, gosh.
So I know in the state of Connecticut, the law, that states that, anytime a member of the parent professional team, so a member of, the entire team around the child, which the parents are involved in, and anytime somebody sees the need for an evaluation, the school must evaluate. If they don't agree, they have to take the parent to court. So that law is called child find here in Connecticut. It's might be called something different state to state, but it is the parents' right, and then that's one thing that many parents don't understand.
Yeah, same here. With the Education, Health and Care Plan, and all the provisions are under the Children and Families Act, and there's this code as well. And a lot of the time we see local authorities apply the code as opposed to the actual act, and the code is just for guidance. It's not the act, it's not legally kind of binding, it's more a guidance, the code. So they try and get away with, like, you see it sometimes that they come back and they'll say something under the code, but actually if they were to follow the law around, request for applying for an educational care assessment, which is like your evaluation, we have the same process here. If you can prove that the child may have special educational needs, may.
Mm-hmm.
This is may have.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which special educational provision may be required, then an evaluation, or we call it an EHC assessment, has to be carried out by like the council's educational psychologist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's different. So the school staff is able to perform the evaluations for us. And if a parent disagrees with what the school has come up with at, the school's evaluation, they have a right to ask for an outside provider to do that.
Okay. So it's at the school level, even at that. Oh, okay. And is it, if they do decide that there is a need and they've is it similar to an EHCP in that you then need to basically, you set out all of the child's needs, that are kind of found through assessment, all the child's needs, and then you've got to then match it with provision to meet each of those needs. And it's a legally enforceable contract here against the local authority. So it's, it's very weighty. Is it a similar contract or something with the?
Yes. So the IEP is the same. It's a legal document. So it becomes this sort of fight to get exactly what you want and exactly what would benefit your child written into the IEP, because if it's written there, it must be done. Yeah. So, and that's very difficult. That's something that a parent has to know a lot about. A lot about the special to pain their child and as they should be.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a glitch, I think, in our broadcasting. Just checking what's going on. It's half term over here. Could be me and my kids downloading God knows what right now. Apologies. But yeah.
It's sort of gray and overcast here too, which always isn't good for the connection.
Yeah, but I think it's been so helpful talking about this with you, Megan, to kind of contrast, but also seeing there's some really huge commonalities, but definitely the struggle is common, and the fact that it's got to be the parents, it's the parents, it's us that need to drive this. We need to advocate. We're the advocates. Unfortunately.
Absolutely. And strength in numbers too. Getting together, I can't stress that enough, getting together with other parents, and certainly, reaching out to different resources, coaching, different advocates, people who know these things, and really sharing that information together. Honestly, I had fought my school district on my own for my children for years. And when things really changed, it was when we came together.
Yeah. And I mean, that's our overarching theme this month, isn't it? Interdependence, not independence. Again,
Absolutely.
we keep coming back to it every time. It's you don't want to do this alone. I mean, we definitely want to be leveraging other people's experience, maybe their resources as well. And we've got a few. What we're going to do, we did a webinar on leaning on the law in the UK. So if you want to find out more about how to secure some support for your child with ADHD under UK law, then do check out our webinar. I'll put a link to it in the comment section. I think Megan's gonna in the future soon will provide a similar kind of webinar for the US, I believe. That would be
absolutely. Yep. Working on that. And hopefully that'll highlight some of the things that are necessary for parents to do to obtain a 504 and IEP here in the States.
Yeah, and guys, it does, and that's why I asked Megan kind of the difference it made for her daughter. And for mine, definitely it was a game changer. It's changed her life. Like, she would be a different person. I'm not joking right now. Yeah, she couldn't learn before. She just couldn't. Her self-esteem was shot. And she had no faith in herself as a learner. And now she thinks she can, like, she's talking about, oh yeah, I could go to Cambridge, I could go to Oxford, I want tutoring, mum. She's just so much more empowered. It's beautiful to see.
My daughter as well. She's a very good volleyball player, and she's able to do that now. Like, we had to cut back on her sports because she was also in private therapy after school. And it really, getting that provided for her in school really gave her the opportunity to be on a school team, which is huge for her self-esteem. It's really what she loves, and what she should be doing, and it's been invaluable for her.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. So it is worth the fight. It is a bit of a fight. We're not going to lie. It takes a lot of time. It can be very emotional, but it's so worth it in the end. So definitely, yeah, if you want to know more, do watch the webinar, do reach out to us, and we'll be happy to signpost you, even provide resources to maybe the different kind of charities as well in our respective jurisdictions that can advise on this stuff as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you, Megan, this has been great. And
yes, thank you.
Yeah, we'll speak soon.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.